welcome back to another Fapping channel. I'm Joe Books Corner, where today we are talking and doing a novels versus video, which is where I pit the novel against the adaptation if it's a movie and or TV show. Personally, I've not done a TV show yet, but I do plan on doing one in the future. I don't know if it's going to have a little bit of an format. Normally, we review one, review the other, and then we cross-review them together if there's enough things to talk about. And I'm going to be honest with you, for the comparison section of this video, I have things that I liked better about one or the other. However, I don't have a lot to really say, which we'll talk. That being said, let's first jump into a Jacob in the past to tell you the books I've written in case you want to read them. Hi, how you guys doing? How's that Jacob? Is he doing good? I hope so. That being said, let's talk about Gunshot Residue. Starts off this trilogy. We have P49, which is the second book in this trilogy. And we also have Mr. and Mr. St. James, which is the final book in this trilogy. All three books are available on Kindle Unlimited. All three books are wide, so you can buy them anywhere if you don't believe in Amazon. However, the ebook is exclusive to Amazon. I will review the loglines for all three. However, we'll go into a little bit more detail what the first one's about because you have to read this one to be able to read these ones, you know what I mean? But let's first go through the loglines. Loglines are simply just like the top part right here. I'm not going to read you any of this, just this. So the first one is your husband's secrets enough to shatter your world, which I feel like is a pretty good theme for the book. The second one, which is this one, is what are you really capable of? And then the third one, which is this one, is how far are the bounds of love? Essentially, this follows an already married couple, Alex and DeMarcus. They are currently going through some marital problems at the beginning of this book. They've been together for 5 years, and Alex strongly believes that his husband is cheating on him. He just has this feeling. There's other people in his life that are kind of instigating him towards this realization as well, and so he takes it upon himself to figure out if his husband's actually cheating on him or not. And he actually warns that there's a bigger conspiracy mystery going on that overspans 3 different books that has to do with his husband. Once again, they are already married. These are spicy romantic suspense novellas. They're very short and they're very fast paced, so you can read them very quickly. That's all I got for you. I love them, but I wrote them, so I'm biased. That being said, jump back to a Jacob in whatever video you're watching. All right, let's talk Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So we're gonna start with the novel, and then we'll jump over into the movie, and then we'll do, like I said, a little bit of a comparison. I don't really know how much I have to say. I also don't know how to explain what this is about, how much I'll have to say about the movie either. By the way, let's get started. For Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, I was a little nervous going into this because I do remember enjoying the Martian, but not loving the Martian, and I had similar problems with that I had there. I would say both Grace's character inside this book, he's mostly called Grace, but it's Ryland Grace, is very similar to the main character of the Martian as well. They're both quirky. They both use humor and language to process what they're going through. This follows Grace as he wakes up in a spaceship, not knowing who he is, what's going on. He has things inside him that he doesn't understand, and then we just flash back in time and we learn a little bit about him. And I think it's a very intriguing premise for the first third, and then it kind of bogs down a little bit for the next third, and then it picks back up is how I would describe it. Also, because the trailer is out, I can talk about the rock in the room. Rocky as a character in here I found to be very fascinating and is very oriented towards the type of matter that I think Andy Weir would write based on what I have seen. I just found him very annoying for the majority of this time, and so I understand based on a character standpoint why choices were made the way choices were made, which we'll talk about. Spoilers possibly a little bit later on. I do find some of the actions in here to be frustratingly annoying. With that being said, the story does follow 2 different timelines. So we're following Grace as he's figuring out the sun is dying. Essentially, he has been infected with this parasite that they're not really understanding, but they also can use this parasite as fuel. That was the part that I think was the confusing in every point of the way. Why are we going to be using something that literally that's killing us? But it's fine. It is a part to talk about of the conversation. At least that's how I took it. Did I take it wrong? Let me know. I took it wrong in 2 different formats, if I did, by the way. Just want to make that very clear because I feel the same way. And so he is someone who wrote a paper a long time ago that a lot of people ridiculed him for in the science world, and this woman shows up and says, hey, I actually really liked your paper, and I think you have some very interesting things to say, and I just need someone who's not going to back down. Will you come with me on this journey? And inside the book, the journey is a lot more harder. They have a lot more hurdles to go through. He goes through the ringer, whereas I think in the movie they make it a bit easier for them. I'm gonna be honest, we'll get there. And so half the book takes place in space, half the book takes place on Earth for the most part. Maybe it's like a 70-30 split or something, I don't know, or 70-40 split, I'm not entirely sure. And I did find the flashback scenes or the scenes of understanding who Ryland as a character is to be very frustrating because we were making such head forwards with the stuff going on in space, and then we had to drop away from it immediately. However, I will have to say, just like any other science fiction out there, I just think this is more science than fiction. The thing, and I think the thing that people are going to constantly tell me, no, Jacob, it's not, because no one knows if this could actually happen or if the science in here is real. I think for The Martian, they proved a lot of it to be correct, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know, I could like maybe I trust it a little bit, but it's so science heavy that I just was like, I don't know what I'm listening to. I don't know what I'm trying to process. I don't understand 90% of it. I'm happy that I had some context to. No, I landed on a 4. I feel like the writing was fine as well. I think certain things could be described better, other things could be described differently, especially if the visualization that they wanted was very similar to the movie. Like Andy Weir was like, yeah, this is what I've been thinking. I don't know if I got the same impression for certain things, especially when it comes to Rocky and Rocky's technology and stuff that's talked about throughout the middle of the book. I don't know if I agreed. Also, but as a comparison, we'll get there in a second. So that's the book. I gave it a 4. With the movie, which stars Ryan Gosling in the role of Grace. It has pretty good side cast of characters as well. Tells the same exact story. There's literally, I don't even think there's a few structural beats that are changed, but they still happen. They just change the order of them. There's a few conversations. I think they wanted more bigger momentum moments with them, and in the book I feel like they're kind of shallow, and so I think the movie does plus it in that way. They both have horrible pacing problems. The movie itself is like 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it feels 2 hours and 40 minutes. The book itself feels like 450 pages, which is what it is. And so they both feel much of their length, and a lot of the times I did feel like both could be shorter in aspects of the story. Rocky as a character I much preferred in the movie. I thought he was cuter, and I felt like there was a lot more emotional tail points. I'd also have to say, because Rocky is so animated so beautifully, so created so wonderfully inside this very realistic proportion that the directors gave us, I will have to compliment the fact that like he just felt like very much true and very animated. This felt like an animation to me, a live action animated movie. I feel very strongly about that, and some of the visuals here are absolutely stunning. The issue here is that not every visual is absolutely stunning, but for the moments I didn't really care for, I think the moments that do stand out are just so strong. Like there's a scene where the colors change is all I'll say, and I do think it's probably worth the price of admission if you can see it on a premium screen. Yeah, I saw it personally in Dolby. We were watching it last night and I was like, oh, this should have been IMAX. It's whatever. So like I would probably prefer the IMAX, and so I would probably recommend going more towards the IMAX. However, I have found that in the cases where I live, or the places I live near where I can have access to premium screens, that our Dolby screens are bigger than our IMAX screens, which is weird. It's fine. There's some interesting geo changes and stuff that I think could be really fun and really distinct on an IMAX screen, which is why I recommend it in that way. Ryan Gosling does a phenomenal job. However, I do think he tones down Grace quite a bit. I would say Grace on Earth is very much more like the character that I'm familiar with. There's nods to him in space, but I feel like he's not the same. And I wonder if that's a characteristic choice because he doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't really find out who he is. He doesn't really find out why he's there until like towards the very end. And so I can understand where maybe Ryan was going to play him differently. In the story, they don't really play him differently. He feels very much the same character throughout the entire thing. There is obviously personal and growth, especially with the choices that he makes in the end and where he ends up and how he decides to live his life. But I think they all make a lot of sense. And I want to say, because I liked the human side of the story a lot more in the movie than I did in the book, I actually think it played out so much better, and I liked all the choices like 10 times better. Like, yeah, this is exactly what you're gonna do. I completely understand this. It makes complete sense to me. The only thing that doesn't make sense to me, I think it does, but I don't think they do like a good enough job explaining the science of everything. I think for having a book that is so science heavy, and I just read it, going to something that is explaining nothing to you and just hoping that you're just like in for the ride, which to be fair I was, so it's fine. And so was my brother. He did have questions though that I had to explain. Well, this is the reason why this works. This is the reason why this works. This is how this could work. This is because these are things that were explained to me, but they don't even mention it. Like Rocky's entire being, what he can do, how he processes the whole 9 yards. Not even talk about. There's a few interesting like key points that I think a lot of people are gonna be happy with, but like it's just not really talked about. And so I do find that there are some story choices towards the very end. Also, they gloss over two very big things or creations of things, and then they use them as reveals, which I think do work for the movie. However, I don't know, I just didn't like the pacing of it. That's what it comes down to. I did get the movie a 4.5 though out of 5 stars. And this is a weird experience because I never once reading this felt like it was a 5-star read for me personally. A lot of people do think it's a 5-star read. So more respect on to you, but not for me. And the movie there was moments. There was a few moments where I was like, oh, maybe this is a 5-star film. And then I was like really watching it and I was like, no, it's a 4. And there's a Pixar moment is what I'm calling it. It's like I cried twice during the film and one of them I felt like was extremely earned and very like well placed. Like I said, it's like one of those structural change moments. And then there was another moment that I felt like was not earned. And I don't know, that's because I knew that it wasn't real. I was like, it's not true. But then they tried to do it again. And I was like, what are you doing, movie? This is interesting. I don't think we need that many moments like that in this film. Visually, it's stunning. They did such a good job creating everything. I know it's all practical, which is beautiful. The acting is phenomenal. I really, really like the female scientist. She just got nominated. Maybe she won the Oscar, but she just got nominated for the Oscar a few years ago she just got put on Netflix. Oh my god, what is that movie called? But it was really good. I thought she was great here. And like, she brought a lot more oomph to this character. And also, once again, because I guess jumping a little bit over into comparisons for a bit, I've been teeter-tottering that direction, which is go there. The movie I gave a 4.5. I think visually it was just more stunning, and I just like seeing the story more than reading it. It doesn't always happen that way, but this just happens to be like one of those experiences. I also felt the same way about The Martian. I think The Martian, the first time I saw it, I gave it like a 5. It's probably like a 4.25 nowadays, but I do enjoy it better than the source material it's based on. And so maybe Andy Weir is just one of those people that I prefer the adaptations. With that being said, for comparison's sakes, the story points stay exactly the same, except for a few integral conversations. One's about death, and then also I think there's like a point where they did kind of switch something around, but like it's almost a perfect adaptation. Like if you're looking for something and you love this book and you're nervous, I wouldn't be nervous. That's what I'm gonna say. And I think, in my opinion, because I liked one or the other, I don't necessarily think it's necessary for you to read the book. However, if you do have questions afterwards, like why certain things work the way, or you don't think everything is explained beautifully enough, I mean, I think these are flaws that many people are going to take away from the film. But yeah, I would recommend the source material because I do think Andy Weir does a good enough job explaining to you why certain actions are happening in the way they're happening. The ending is still the same in case you've only seen the movie. That is what happens. That is the true ending. I think in the movie, I think there's a point where Grace's character does feel really lobbied with Rocky to where his choices that he makes that I don't think everybody's going to agree with does work for me personally. My brother had a big point in contention with how he ended up where he does. And not at the very end, but when we, like one of the few final flashbacks is all I'll say for it. And I had to explain that it's exactly, it's very true. And I feel like her character in the movie, for the choices that she ends up making, I think it works much better in my opinion. They also took away a lot of the drama, a lot of the outside sources of government and stuff that are coming in, and that took up a lot of page time. And I'm happy that it really wasn't present in the movie. Or if it was present, it wasn't talked about really at all. This is a very celebrated, like we're all coming together, the world needs saving, and we're going to save the world as one. It's also visually a very stunning film, and I find that a lot of the space sequences were better obviously better shown and described to me, as I found some of them to be harder to follow. But I do like how the directors, I can't think what their names are, but you know who I'm talking about, how they did sometimes try to put you in the point of view. I find the most interesting point of view in the movie is Rocky's POV shots. I was like, oh, this is interesting. It does make a lot of sense to me. I also, once again, I never once pictured Rocky as Rocky and or Rocky's technology as Rocky's technology either. And maybe that's just me. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Overall, because we are putting them against one another, which one do I think is better? It is the movie. In my opinion, I think it's better. That being said, I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you so much for watching, and good.